sometimes God will change the weather to set up who he wants to hear the word. Because the word tonight shall not fall to the ground void. But the word for tonight has already begun. And I'm here to illustrate and to show you where in the process you are. Now, if you can give me a couple minutes so I can build up the foundation. We all understand farming, correct? We understand how farming goes. The process to farming is that a farmer has to now map out his location of where he wants to farm and plant. And as he maps it out, he begins to design a plan to where what fruits and vegetables, what trees are going to go where. He has to map it out in his mind first before he can see it on the ground. So what ends up happening now is he has a plan, and that plan won't falter because it's been, in a sense, you could say it has been accident-proof because he has already prepared himself mentally for what he has to do. After he has prepared himself mentally, he gets to work. He goes into the field. He starts to prepare the ground. And as we know, the ground is not what we consider to be. Sometimes it's a hard plain, and he has to break the ground and get to the fresh soil which is underneath. Usually they use a plow, they use an ox or a horse, or they use a rake depending on how large the field is. And they rake the ground. He's building himself, he's riching the ground before he plants a seed into the ground. So as he is raking, as they are plowing, what happens is that the ground is exposed. What the ground used to protect itself, which was the hard layer, is no longer there as its protection. The rich soil is now exposed. Now with the exposure of the rich soil, take me back a little bit, you see the rocks, you see the weeds, you see all of the habitation that was in the dirt that could stop your progression in the future. So what the farmer does is he removes all obstacles that could stop him in the future. So therefore, he already now has thought about it. He's prepared the ground. Now he's making sure that he can protect his future investment. Now the process of all of this is called farming. We know that. I'm just building the foundation. But the most important part that I want to discuss tonight is the seed. After the ground is prepared, after he has designed everything, he's removed all obstacles out the way, now it's time for him to plant the seed. And now when he plants the seed into the ground, he has to map out to make sure that seeds don't grow on top of each other, to make sure that they are evenly spaced, to make sure that you don't put the wrong seeds with the wrong seeds. The only two seeds that they say work together, well, one of the few, is cocoa beans and a banana. I never knew that. While I was researching for this, they say the cocoa beans allow the banana to create its shape. Only the farmer would know that. There are times where you are planted with people that you don't even understand why you are next to them. But they're the main reason why you become who you are. But only the farmer knows that. As a seed, we will complain. We will say we are grouped improperly. Lord, what have you done to me? Farmer, what is going on? But then we start to see as we progress, we understand why the farmer put it that way. And the title for tonight is called Germination. Germination is the process from seed to tree. seed to fruit, seed to vegetable. The entire thing is called germination. Last year was the year of manifestation, divine manifestation. Go to the next picture, Ashley. We'll get back to that tree later. Last year was divine manifestation. We went through the seed process. We already passed the startup process. We've already done growth and establishment. Now we're on expansion. This is the year of maturity and expansion. Now, in the process of all of this, we went through 4 stages. We went through the seed, and I want to go through everything this sermon is not that long. God has truly blessed you tonight because it's cold. So this is going to be very quick, but I want to make sure that I go through this thoroughly. As the seed, we all know that the seed has everything inside of it to become the end product. Now, one thing that I did not know about the seed is that the seed actually feeds itself. When it is in the ground, the only thing that it uses the ground for is the protection and the moisture. The seed feeds itself. And at the startup phase, that little spout that comes out is the actual root or the stem, depending on what it is. And for this process, we'll call it the root. At the startup phase, the first thing that you gain is a root, which is the first thing to show you that you will have stability in this entire transition. You shall have stability. Now, the next thing is growth. By this stage, the seed itself is starting to separate, the outer shell of the seed is starting to separate. The plant, the tree, the vegetable, the fruit, the stem is starting to show out. Sometimes the farmer has to go to the ground and just move the dirt a little bit so that he can see the leaves come out. Establishment is established. Now he knows for sure that there's nothing wrong with this seed that has been going through the stages. At this point, he can be sure that he will get a positive outcome in the end. Now we are at expansion. And with expansion, I want you to go back to the first picture. Now, the interesting thing, I want to stay around the tree because the tree is very, very interesting. As you guys see the roots are all over the place. They're very sporadic. Some go across, some go deep. In a perfect situation for a tree, they say on average the roots will go 20 feet long and 20 feet deep. And as I'm thinking about this, I say, Lord, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to show me? What do you want me to tell your people? And as I'm looking, I can see with these roots that are all over the place, they show a source of foundation. They show a source of being able to satisfy yourself by getting what you need as the nutrients from all over. You see, what happens with a tree or a plant that withers or it falls over is that it has poor foundation. The ground on which it stands is weak. The tree was not able to stabilize itself on the ground. And as we know spiritually, the seed is the kingdom of God. But the interesting part that came to me was, what was the dirt? The dirt is you. The dirt is you. What happens is that God made a plan and he saw the dirt. He designed the dirt. He cleaned, he prepared the dirt. Then he put the kingdom within the dirt. And then I wondered, I'm saying, what's so important about the dirt? Why would God want to put the kingdom of God in dirt? And if you guys can open up your Bibles to Genesis 1:26 verse through 29. Hold on one second. Are we all there? Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all earth, and over all creeping things that creep on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on this earth." Now, what struck me was that the dirt that God designed, that he placed the seed in, he gave that dirt dominion. He gave that dirt power. He gave the dirt the power to subdue all other creations. And it showed me, I'm like, that's why the kingdom was not placed in a donkey, in an ox, in a bird, in a fish. Because those animals, those creations could be conquered. They could be subdued. They could be controlled. But what happens here is that God made a clever plan. He made a clever plan. He put the seed in dirt. And as he puts the seed in dirt, for some of us who know, the seed has to be placed properly. It can't be too deep. It can't be too high, because if it's exposed, what happens is the birds of the air come and they start to poke and they start to have their way. Then they get the seed and then that's it. But what happens is that God placed the kingdom deep within you, but not too deep, to a point where you're not, we can say you're not lost. You don't understand. You will never be to the point where you won't know the kingdom's within you, or others won't be able to tell you that the kingdom's within you. And now I understand, some people say, if we're the dirt, then what's the tree? Through this process, and follow me if you can, through this process of germination, the seed grows in us. The seed builds foundation within us. But what happens is that the seed, at one point, at the expansion point, is now in control of the dirt. You see now, through this entire process, the dirt was shielding the seed. In a sense, you could say that the seed needed the dirt. You could say that. But at the expansion point, what happens now is that your roots have now spread across the dirt and now cling to the dirt and hold the dirt and subdue the dirt. And then as I thought about this, I said, what is going on? Because I'm seeing this illustration in my head. I'm saying, God, I don't understand. And what came in my mind was that we do not live, but it's Christ that lives in us. And when I saw this and when it came to my mind, I said, God, It's so crazy how us as dirt, we want the respect of a tree. And we want people to see us as a tree. But it's not us that's the tree. It's God that's the tree. We are blessed that the kingdom is within us. Then the kingdom subdues us. The kingdom controls us. Therefore, where we are placed is sacred ground. Where we are is holy ground. Not everyone, if you go to some national parks, not everyone's able to just walk around how they want to. You can't go and touch every tree that you want to. You can't go to the tallest tree and do whatever you want next to them. They have guards. The animals protect some of the trees. The nature in itself will protect these trees. And it goes to show me, in this season of maturity and expansion, God is asking you to let the kingdom grow within you. And now I understand why certain things are said to certain numbers of people. And it's not a disrespectful thing. It's not a cursing thing. But certain words just can't be told to masses. At the stage of expansion, your leaves start to show. You start to grow a lot of branches, but no fruit. No fruit. No fruit. What happens at this point is that you are able to withstand the winds. You are able to withstand the waves. You are able to withstand the earthquakes. Not every tree falls during an earthquake. You may shake a tree. You may rattle a tree, but not every tree falls. And during the expansion phase, there's a scientific term that they like to call photosynthesis. Not every tree can do the process of photosynthesis. What photosynthesis is that the tree is filled with chlorophyll. I believe that's the word. I got it? Good. Now, the tree is able to gather the sun's rays. It is able to gather the water from the roots. And then it's able to gather the carbon dioxide from our mouths and create its own food. So at this point, after you've been established, you don't need the farmer to hold your hand at the expansion phase. You don't need someone to tend to your every will, every day, every night, every moment. At that phase, you are able to stand on your own. You are able to multiply from within. You are able to grow from within. What happens now is the farmer looks from the window and he sees your progress, then he goes back inside. He knows that this tree, this plant will survive. Now, in the other case, if the tree cannot stand, if the tree cannot feed itself from within and needs the farmer on a day-to-day obstacle, what happens now is the tree becomes a problem. He becomes a nuisance, you can say. Because now the farmer can't go far. The farmer can't tend to the rest of the farm as he wants to. He can't make a plan to visit this side, then visit this side, then visit this side. Every day he has to come here. He has to come to this tree right here. So every day, no matter where he goes, he has to come back here. He could be all the way down at the end of the farm. He has to make his trip right back here. Because why? We're not feeding ourselves from within. Now, this is all physical, but you can understand the spiritual side behind this. Going from expansion to maturity takes a lot. Because what people don't understand is that when trees begin to feed themselves and they're able to gather the nutrients for themselves, the maturity rate is much quicker. And what comes out of that is more fruitful. They multiply more. Because all the farmer has to do is look from afar and say, 1 more month and I'll be able to grab what I need to grab. 2 more weeks and it's ready. 3 more weeks and it's ready. I can wait. There's no problem. And what I've come to understand is that churches, the people of God, we like to stay put at the expansion phase. We don't want to move past that because what it calls for you to work. It calls for you to have your own Bible study. It calls for you to be able to contact the sun. It calls for you to be able to get the water for yourself. And what happens is now we feel neglected because the farmer doesn't come around like he used to. The farmer doesn't show me attention like he used to. The farmer isn't interested in me anymore. If anyone knows a successful farmer does not only focus on the land that he has. He is always trying to get more. He is always trying to expand his franchise because it's all about the harvest. It's not always about what you plant. It's about what you get back. And as churches of God, what has happened is that the expansion phase, when we are expected to grow, when we are expected to hold our own weight, when we are expected to do what we have been taught, we want to go back to the established. We want to go back to growth. We want to go back to startup. And then we want to go back to the seed. We don't want to move forward. As much as we talk about moving forward, as much as we sing about moving forward, as much as we read about moving forward and being successful, we're scared. Because the more successful you get, the less of your leader you shall see. The less of your leader you shall see. A tree that can produce fruit will not see the farmer until harvest time. You will see the winter, you shall see the summer, you will experience the harshest of conditions. And what will happen, sometimes you feel like you want to curse the farmer. Why did you forsake me? Why did you leave me here? How could you do this to me? But when harvest time comes, that's when you want to shine. That's when you want to feel important. But in ministry, the most important part is, yes, the maturity is what we want to go for, but the expansion is very important. The expansion is very, very, very important, and it's close to the end. What sometimes we want to do, we want to focus on the end. We don't want to focus on the process. We don't want to focus on building ourselves. We don't want to focus on that. What we want to focus on, I just want to be mature. I'm mature. I'm 25, I'm 26, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm mature. Last time I checked for a tree, some trees take hundreds of years, thousands of years for it to be at its full state. And even then, it still grows. It still multiplies. They say if a tree is in its perfect, if it's in perfect condition, if the ground is good, if the water is there, if it can grab sun, it'll never stop growing. It'll never stop growing. It'll continue to multiply and grow. And when they finally cut down the tree, they see the rings inside, which show the genealogy of the tree. From when it started, they can even date back the time. From when it started to how old it is now. But I want to go back to photosynthesis. And I want to pay attention to the spiritual side of it. Because, yes, you can grab the sun, which is Jesus. You can capture the rays from the sun. You can capture the word from the ground, which is the Bible. But here comes a component, carbon dioxide. Too much of it for us is lethal. Help me with this. If this doesn't make sense, please nod your head and tell me it don't make sense. But a little bit of carbon dioxide is good for you because it helps you produce the food that you need. So spiritually, you need someone to talk bad about you. You need someone to curse you. You need someone to constantly be picking at your side, because what it does, it makes everything come together, and then you're able to eat. Then you're able to eat. Then you're able to enjoy what you have made in front of you. We haven't focused on anyone else yet. We haven't focused on outreach yet. We're talking about the expansion of you. As Christians, once we hear a little bit of gossip, once we hear so-and-so's talking about me, so-and-so doesn't like me, we turn ourselves away from God. So what we do is we abandon the entire operation, the process. We abandon the entire thing. We turn away from God. We turn our leaves away from God. So our hands are no longer lifted. They're in our pockets. So for a tree, what that is, all you see is sticks. You don't see the fruitfulness and the beautiful colors of the leaves. Then we don't want to dig into the word. So then what happens, we become unstable where we stand. So now when storms come, they got to support you. They got to hold you. Jesus. And what happens, some of you may see it, and you may have seen it. There are some trees that they have sticks next to them, and they have to have a hook to hold it in place, because why? It's not founded. It won't stand straight by itself. Spiritually, you are crippled. And now you become a nuisance to the farmer. The farmer did not plan to have to put crutches on you. He did not plan to have to come to you every day to make sure that you're receiving water, because he created a sprinkler system that comes at certain times of the day, that comes at the right time, and it sprays the water for you. But what happens now is when you are a tree that is showing signs, you are a tree or a plant that are showing signs of non-progression, he now has to bring a pitcher of water that's just for you. And then he has to drown you in water so that he doesn't have to visit you again that day. Because if he gives you a little bit, he has to come back again. If he gives you a little bit more, he has to come back again. So what he does, he just drops everything on you. And he comes back, probably tomorrow. And he goes and he tests the soil to see what's happening. Check the tree, check the branches to see what's going on. But what happens is that you get flooded now. As a seed, you are flooded with water. And what happens is that you don't consume all of the water that falls on you. So what happens now is you forget bits and pieces of the message. You forget what was sent to you. You forget what prophecies God had aligned for you. Because when he puts the water on you, he says, I made you to produce. I made you to multiply. I made you to grow. But all you heard was, I made you. You don't hear anything else. You hear, I made you. And then what happens is now you say, I don't belong to you. I'm my own being. Who are you to tell me that you made me? And what happens is the fruit of that tree never show. They will never show. That tree will be drowned by the word, covered by the word, but it will be drowned by the word. And until that tree can fix itself, because that's how nature is. Nature will always find a way to balance itself out. Whether the tree fixes itself or the ground will push you out. The ground itself, and sometimes it's called erosion, because too much moisture in the ground leaves the ground unsettled. And what the ground says is, I can't hold anything here anymore. So boop, there goes a tree. Boop, there goes a plant. Boop, there goes this. And then we say, how did that tree fall? It looked so beautiful. It looked amazing. But we're not the farmers. Only the farmer can tell during the process what tree is beautiful. What tree will be amazing. Because for us, all we see is a tree. We see wood, we see bark, we see leaves. But a farmer will carry a pen and paper. He'll measure the leaves. This tree is growing properly. He will check the bark to see if it's strong enough to protect it from the winter and from the bugs and the insects. But all we see is a tree. So in ministry, what happens now is trees are brought to us, and we call them beautiful. We call them amazing. But the farmer has labeled them unfruitful, with no future, and they are ready to be thrown out. But those are the trees that we admire because we don't understand what the farmer sees. So what happens is now we give these trees the praise. We put these trees in good soil. We put them in the best, in the center of the garden. And at the right time, the farmer comes and he says that this tree will not survive. And you say, impossible. This tree is amazing. This tree is beautiful. You can't tell me that this tree isn't a good tree. The farmer walks away because he said his warning. He doesn't need to speak again because the farmer is the final word. You won't go to a lawyer. You won't go to a teacher. You won't go to a banker. You won't go to anyone else to find out about a tree but the person who put it there. So then the farmer walks away. And everyone continues to praise the tree. They come back every day. They're so happy. And then before you know it, the tree falls. The tree collapses. And then they go back to the farmer and they say, what happened? What happened? What happened to the tree? What did I tell you? The tree was never going to survive. Spiritually, and I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but it is what it is. There are preachers out there who will not survive this process. Some will never see maturity, no matter how old they get, no matter how strong their ministry is, they themselves will never be mature because the mature process has nothing to do with you. The mature process has nothing to do with the tree anymore. Once you leave expansion, you leave yourself. Because expansion was about you, was about being able to feed yourself, was about being able to produce. Now when you get into maturity, maturity is all about the fruit. And last time I checked, a tree doesn't eat its own fruit. The fruit is there to be picked by the farmer When the farmer picks the fruit, he checks the fruit. He said, this is good. He leaves some for himself. Then he sends it out. The tree never, ever, 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 ever eats its own fruit. It never eats its own fruit because the fruit will not satisfy the tree. The tree has everything that it needs to satisfy itself. This is why when it comes to ministry, the money, the cars, the numbers, the people, the church is not what satisfies you. What satisfies you is sun, water, carbon dioxide. Keep talking. Keep talking. You're only pushing me to my purpose. You're only pushing me to where I need to be. You're not stopping me. Once I'm at expansion phase, you're not stopping me. You're no longer a hindrance. You are a hindrance at growth. You are a hindrance at startup. But at that stage, I don't get to experience you because I'm covered by dirt. I'm covered by the dirt. Once I get to being established, I'm already starting the process of feeding myself. Once I'm expanded, you're history. You are history. The only thing that you're doing for me is helping me with my process. So when I'm putting the elements together, I say thank you. Thank you. I make myself a sandwich. Thank you. I'm making myself a meal. Thank you. You got more? Thank you. As trees, our battle is not to worry about what else is going on. Your fruits deal with that. When there's hunger, when there's pain, when there's thirst, your fruit deals with that. You stay put. You stay put where you are, you grab and you make, and you continue to produce and push out. Your words will push out and help and feed those in need. A tree will never get up and leave where it is to go feed a nation. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Why would a tree kill itself to feed a nation? Because once it gives you, 20 apples, that's it. The tree is done. But the farmer made the tree to produce. And the reason I said why the farmer keeps some for himself is the farmer is educated. He future-proofs himself. From the fruit that he keeps, he continues to plant more. He plants more. He plants more. That's why when you see in a successful church, in a God-ordained ministry, there's always leaders popping up. There's always leadership popping up. There's always people popping up. There's always numbers in those who are willing to go through the process. To go through the process. And now, I know the whole tree thing, it kind of bugged me too. I was like, where did this come from? I didn't get it. If you guys can open your Bibles to Mark 8, verses 22 to 26. Mark 8, verses 22 through 26. There we go. Then he came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him and begged him to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. Stay right here, Ashton. And he looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. Ever since I read this verse, I was confused. Because I said, why why would he see men as trees? Why would he see us as walking trees? Because there's something about the process from seed to tree that we need to understand. And he looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. What goes to show you is that everyone has to go through the process from seed to tree. You have to start up. You have to grow. You have to expand. Then you have to mature in your walk. Because spiritually, he went through 2 phases of sight. He went through one phase which allowed him to see trees. The second, when we actually go to the next verse, then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up. And he was restored and saw everyone clearly. The interesting part for me was the first sight he saw. The second time, seeing everyone as humans, his sight was regained. But he was able to see something that people are not able to see, which is the spiritual side of you when you walk. You see what happens? We have the benefit to be like a tree, but not like a tree. We plant ourselves where God tells us to plant. Our roots extend to the ground. So when I'm here, I'm here. You can't tell me to leave. When it's time for me to go, I retract my roots. I go where God tells me to go. I plant my roots. Then I gain and I go. No matter where you go through this process. No matter where God sends you, you will always go as a tree, because where he sends you will be fertile ground. And when you plant yourself, you are able to gather and get, even if everything around you seems to not be able to find water, because a tree can still grow even though everything else around it seems to be dying, because a tree goes deep and it goes far. Some of the greatest trees on this earth can't be removed. They literally cannot take it. They would cause craters to happen on this earth. That's how deep they go. They would cause the ground to be unsettled. That's you. Where God sets you, you will be so great. You will be so deeply rooted that if they tried to remove you, they would ruin everything that's around them. When they're cutting some of these, the tall pine trees, it's actually one of the dangerous jobs to do, because many people die if they don't hear the warning of a falling tree. They have to yell, "Timber!" Everybody moves. Everybody runs. Everybody looks up to find out where is the tree falling from. Because once that tree falls, everything in its path is destroyed. Everything in its path is destroyed. And that brings me to my final and the conclusion. Just as John the Baptist had his head chopped off because his time was up, he spoke when he wasn't supposed to speak. He questioned when he should have believed. As a tree, you are not exempt from anything. The best thing to happen is for you to die with foundation. The worst thing for you to do is die and lose everything that you spent the years working for. Because once the farmer, actually not even the farmer doesn't do the cutting. He sends a company who lives to cut trees. Their job is to cut trees. Their job is to find a tree and try to cut it down and try to get a profit from it. Once you've shown that you no longer can be useful, and now you are becoming a hindrance, you begin to lean on the other trees. You begin to stop the progression of other fruits. Your leaves begin now to block the sun from everyone else. A phone call is made. An order is created. And a tree is now fallen. And your mark will always be there to show everyone where you fell. That's the saddest part about it all. Your mark will remain. They don't remove trunks, because I told you if they remove the trunk, everything else around it shall crumble as well. But they can deal with you falling and the trunk remaining because they can fix the rest. But they can't fix the foundation that was under you. They can't fix that part because they didn't make it. They didn't do it. So what happens is now, once people start to walk by and they see the trunk, they say, this trunk was here for a very long time. What happened to it? Why did they cut it down? Then the ranger of the park will come and say, it was poisoned. The fruits were bad. We were no longer able to harvest from the tree. So the best thing for the tree was to cut it down. In this year, 2015, we've already entered into it. I believe we're 3 months in already? I'm not here to announce seed. I'm not here to announce startup. I'm not here to announce growth or establishment. You experienced it last year. We will not be a ministry that will repeat what you went through already. We are moving forward. I'm here to announce expansion and maturity. Your exit is the kingdom of God. I am here to announce expansion and maturity. In this season, you will have to feed yourself. You will have to gather the elements for yourself. You will have to be able to store it in you and eat from within. It's about time where you can stop trying to reach for a fork and fold your hands and say, I'm full. I'm eating. I ate already. You're no longer looking for a quick meal, a quick sermon, a 3-minute rice bowl. You're no longer looking for that. You are looking inward. And your maturity will come forth. In this year, we bless you with expansion and maturity. This is a feel-good message in a sense, because this is what awaits you. Expansion and maturity. Be hopeful for it. Be humble for it. Be humble during it. Because, like I said before, at any stage of this process, you can be taken out of the equation. So stay humble and focus on your exit. Look at your exit, not where you came from. God will deal with the rest. Expand, mature, and the world shall taste the fruit of the kingdom. Amen.